Happy New Year. Welcome back to M.R Media, where authentic stories are told. Here we entertain, educate, and inform you from the comfort of your home. Kindly don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and also comment on the comment section. Today with us is Anthony Njagi, a businessman and an author of several books, one of the books being the Street Smart book. Kindly let's hear more from them. So Anthony, maybe you can just share with us what really inspired you to start writing books, especially your last book that is about thriving entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Mercy. I write on entrepreneurship because that's the space that I operate in. I'm an entrepreneur myself, and I have been doing business full-time for the last 11 years. That's since 2011. So what I write is basically what I experience daily. And I also have a habit of being curious to know what other people have learned in the course of their journeys, and I have interviewed a number of people even in the course of writing my books. I'm sure you read the first one, What Kenyan Entrepreneurs Never Tell You. You realize that most of the stories I shared are stories of people who have been in business and who I thought people can get practical lessons from, being that they are majorly Kenyans. And I feel that the more I learn, the more I should share, because there are people who are looking out for people to hold their hands in business, and I thought that by writing we can actually preserve that knowledge even for generations to come, as it were. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. If what you know now, is there something that maybe you can say that you never knew before and you've learned through this journey of business? Is there something you can change so that you can start like maybe all over again?
Well, if I were to start all over again, I would first and foremost be very careful about my credit rating. I think there's a gap I had of around 3 years where I could access no loans because of a poor credit rating. And I remember the first time that I was faced with that dilemma is after there's an M.R loan that I had taken in 2013. And well, at that time we didn't even know what's the big deal about, paying on time. But it came to haunt me around 5 years later when I was just about to get a loan facility. And the only thing that kept me from getting that loan was that M.R, which was less than 2,000 bob. And it took me quite some time. I think around 3 years before I could now be formally considered for a loan by a banking institution. So if I were to start all over again, I think I would first and foremost take very good care of my credit rating, pay all my bills on time, start on a clean slate. That is something that I think I would also advise many people who are starting up. Don't ignore that small loan that you think may not have an effect, because these things, clearing yourself from CRB actually takes a long time. It takes a long time. So be it a small loan, pay it, try to pay it, at least be in the process of paying. Even if you cannot pay the entire amount, let there be some goodwill from your side, and don't think that these will not affect you. Yes.
Now, probably if you can just expound more on the loan bit, and maybe you share your experience on how maybe you started off. Did you like take a loan, or how did you first start up with your first starting capital?
Well, thank you, Mercy, for that question. It will help me to disabuse a notion that many people have, that you can just talk into a bank just because you have a business plan. The bank will be too excited to finance your idea. It doesn't work that way. Banks will ordinarily finance an idea which is already in motion, where there's already a demonstrated capability of a person to be having amounts that are bankable at every month, as it were. So it's almost impossible to walk into a bank and start off with a loan. It's almost impossible for you to get a formal loan unless you're already in motion and you have proven that you have a business concept that is working. That said and done, when I was starting off, it was rather interesting because I remember there's a friend of mine called Martin, who had left campus 1 year before me. He had left in 2010, I left in 2011. And when he left, he went and started the business of selling phones and memory cards. And ordinarily, I would not go home over the holidays. I thought that was a waste of time. So I would be left hustling, selling insurance and what have you. And one time Martin came and asked me if I could take him around and, see if we could get a few customers for his phones and memory cards, which he was selling in wholesale. And after day one, I remember that day, he sold items worth well over 50,000 in Kisii town. And the next time he came, we still sold. But after that, he got a job with one of the leading banks in this country. And he decided to now start sending me the items, after which I would send him back the returns minus my profit, as it were, because that was the agreement. Went on, he was transferred again now from Nairobi to Mombasa, and it was impossible now for him to continue sending items because now, you know, the primary source of our items was basically Nairobi. And we agreed that why don't we convert this amount, the worth of the goods, into an amount which I would now be repaying him monthly. And so that's how my initial capital came in, because it was those products that were now converted into a loan, which I would now pay over a period of 12 months, as the agreement was. And because he had seen that there was potential, I had demonstrated the fact that I could sell even when the money was his, or rather the goods were his. It was easy for him to now agree to this term, or the new terms, where I would now have the capital and now repay him, of course, plus interest. Yes.
Okay. Now, suppose maybe there's somebody outside there who really doesn't have a strategy like you had, and maybe he or she has maybe small amount of money, and he feels like this is not enough for me to even start a business that is going maybe to sustain me and even pay my bills. How can you advise such a person?
When you read my first book, and I know you have, you realize the first chapter is start with what you have. I personally believe that there's no amount that is too small for starting a business. And I've given a story of a guy who I knew many years ago when we were growing up in primary school, as it were. And this guy was called Mbudhia. And I remember he would come to get milk from my mom and other ladies in the village. And his concept was very simple. He came and studied how they were doing their milk business and realized that they were supplying to a hotel which would pay them daily. In some cases, after a week, if my mom and the other ladies managed to convince the hotel guy, but the hotel people usually preferred to pay in cash daily to settle their accounts. Somebody came with a concept that why don't I take your milk and pay you after 2 weeks? Because after 2 weeks, you'll get the money in lump sum. You can use that for cow feed. You can use that to pay your school fees for your kids. And the concept was so good because on one side, we had these ladies who preferred to have their money in lump sum. On the other side, we had a savvy business person, street smart if you ask me, who came and leveraged on something that we call the working capital cycle, where he would buy the items, the milk from my mom and these other ladies, and buy the milk on credit. So day one, he would be having liquid cash. Day 2, liquid cash. Day 3, liquid cash. The only time that he needed to pay off was on the 14th day. So he realized that he could actually work with that money for the first 13 days. And he started using that money to buy groceries, to stock a grocery shop, because for him, he would buy the milk on credit, but he would sell on cash at the nearest shopping center. He would go sell in cash. So if he's, say, selling like 10 liters per day, and at 60 bob, so that's 600 that he's getting daily, which nobody is claiming from him until the 14th day. So this 600, you'd go buy sukuma wiki, buy cabbage, buy other groceries, and still sell on cash. You know, after some time, people started thinking that, you know, Mbudhia is adding he must be adding water to the milk. He's succeeding too fast. But much later, I came to realize that he didn't have to. He didn't have to add water to the milk because he just leveraged on something we call working capital cycle, which is getting money and delaying your suppliers for as long as it's convenient. And this way he was able to keep expanding his stock so long as he was sure that he would be honoring his obligation by the 14th day, which he did faithfully because he was liquid and he was also making money from the groceries as well as the milk. Yes.
Ah, nice. I think that is what we call as working street smart, yeah? Yes. Okay, awesome. So, probably, what can you, in a nutshell, what can you say that, are you a successful businessman from compared to how you started up to this moment? Can you rate yourself as a successful businessman?
I can say I'm progressive, and I thank God for that. I thank God because where I started is not where I am. Of course, qualitatively, quantitatively, I've learned a lot more things along the way. There are many things I've picked along the way about how business operates. So I would say that I think I've made a lot of progress, even in terms of my view of business. And well, I may not be where I want to be, but I would say that I am not where I started. Yes.
So, can you define for us what is success in your own words? What is success?
Success, in my own words, is having everything aligned. I mean, we are human beings, but we are composite. We are composite. There's a lot around us that makes us who we are. Anthony is a business person. Anthony is an author, but he's also a father, and Anthony is a husband. Anthony is also a gospel minister, especially involved in student ministry. I define success as having all these things together in one act, so that my business success does not override or is not at the expense of my success in the family, at the family front as a husband. It does not inhibit my operations as a father to my children. And maybe to better sum it up, I was just reading recently about the co-founder of, is it LinkedIn, who was saying that he made a decision very early in his business life that every Tuesday was reserved for his family and primarily his wife. So he would leave at 5 every Tuesday, regardless of whether there was an emergency or not. At 5 he had to be home. And he says that if you had an emergency and the emergency came at 4:55 at work, then you had better find him on the parking lot because already he was on his way out. So for him, he decided that that would be his mantra, because he said he didn't want to be like some people who were on their 7th startup and in their 7th marriage at the same time. So he thought that he needed to align these things. And he says that when he looks back, he doesn't count his success as how he has climbed up the corporate ladder, but how he has held his family together thus far. So for me, success is when everything is aligned and when all other things that define me as Anthony are in place. Yes.
Lastly, you have this favorite TV station, The Prophet by Marcus. What can you tell us about him? Because I can see that you really follow up a lot of people. So maybe you just give us something about Marcus.
Yes, Mercy. Marcus Lemonis is a guy whose program I love a lot. Well, I may not say about his other facets of life, but business-wise, I love his acumen in business. And you know, he always insists that it's about people, it's about product, it's about the process. 3 things. He calls them the 3 Ps. When he looks at your business, he first wants to understand the processes. Is there a consistent process that can be followed so that even if I opened Altocom, of course, you know my business is Altocom Limited. We deal with computer sales and services, the CCTV installations and what have you. He says that when he comes to your business, the measure of how successful or how futuristic your business is can always be gauged by 3 things, which he calls the people, the quality of people that you've hired. Number two, the processes. Are there consistent processes in that business every day? That even if the owner were not there, the processes will still continue. The third thing he says is product. How consistent is the quality of the products that I'm offering? Products could mean services or goods that we deal in. And for me, I have followed the profit because I have found invaluable business lessons from the way that Marcus approaches his, or rather, Marcus's approach towards business. It has always been an inspiration for me. I'm always looking out for the next season of the profit. Yes.
Okay, maybe just a quick one about your first book. I'm always very interested about your first book because it has a lot of things to talk about. So there's this point that really caught my eyes about the public tenders. There's a place where you wrote about the public tenders. Maybe you just give us maybe an overview about it so that people can hear more.
Yeah, actually, there's a chapter, avoid public tenders like the plague. And I have given enough, actually it's in the Street Smart Entrepreneur. It's in the Street Smart Entrepreneur, which is my second book. Well, it's good to see that you have read all books. I have belabored the point because I have seen and interviewed people informally many times, and I have been a witness to many dead dreams because people were involved in tenders too early, before they were well oiled, before they were well connected. And you find a person supplied a county government in the year 2013, to date they have not been paid. Of course, it started with the stories of there's still one signature, one signatory has not signed, and before you know it, banks are on your neck because in most cases you find that those people had taken loans. I have this stance that public tenders should be avoided like the plague for starters. If you're just starting in business, don't start with tenders. Don't go apply for those county government tenders. Those ones are for people who are well oiled. I mean, a person who has an account balance, who can afford to wait even for 2 years before they can be paid, or the politically connected for obvious reasons. We are in Kenya and we know. So I believe firmly that public tenders should be reserved for those two categories of people. If you are well oiled or if you are politically connected, but not for starters. Yes.
So you're saying for common wananchi like me, I'm not supposed to maybe apply for a tender because now maybe I won't get it through.
Well, Mercy, we all know that you're not a common mwananchi. But I would still say that for somebody who feels that they have no connections, and they are not well oiled in terms of they do not have the capacity to wait, don't go sell all your stock to supply a particular public institution. You may cry in the toilet, as they say.
Sawa. Maybe the last question now about the advertisement bit. There's a point where you say that minus advertisement in a business, it's like winking for a girl in the night. Nobody can see. It's only that you who was in the business. Yes, probably just give us an overview.
That's true. The single most important function of a business is advertisement. That is my belief. Without advertisement, you're probably the only one who knows what you're doing. I mean, even for your YouTube channel, which I subscribed to, I subscribed because I saw the advertisement by way of mouth. There are so many people that you may realize would love to see the content, but they don't know that you have the content until you tell them that you have the content. So in my business, I believe that the single most important function is advertisement. And if I were to hire between two people, one person who is very good with record keeping and one person who is very good with advertisement, I will hire a person who is very good with advertisement, because when you take the word out, that's how people can know what you do. I mean, I could start a business today selling bed sheets, but unless and until people know that I do it, they will continue buying where they were buying. I can start a kinyozi business today, but until I tell my friends that I have started, I mean, I may start even being angry at them, but you guys never come to promote me. But probably they don't know what I offer. And knowing what you offer also means how you do it, what are your rates, why should they come to you and not to other people. So advertisement also goes beyond just telling people that I have a business to what makes you different from the others in the market, as it were. Yes.
Thank you so much, Anthony. And I believe people have learned a lot about you. And maybe there are two or few people who want to learn and even read more about your books. So maybe you can just tell them where they can get the books, or rather how they can reach you out.
I'm sure, Mercy, you will also be sharing my number at the bottom of the channel. I have 3 books. The first book is What Kenyan Entrepreneurs Never Tell You. I have rightly titled it Book 1 because I believe it's foundational for people who are starting out. The second book is The Street Smart Entrepreneur, is for people who are now scaling up. And the third book is, which I was holding today, it's called Thriving Entrepreneurs. It's my third book. It's for people now who are now at a place that they now just want to thrive. After you have laid the foundation, scaled up, now you're at the place of thriving. And each book is 10 chapters, readable chapters. I have purposely written books that are not too bulky because I know I don't personally finish big books. So these are one sitting read. If you ask me, for people who are very avid readers, these are books you can read in a day. I mean, we're talking of around 100, like this one is 122 pages. Big font, legible font, enjoyable font. I've written my books in forms of stories. I know you know that. When I want to pass a point across, I do it in form of a story. Yes, a story about a person that I have learned from, or a story about an instance that I went through, so that people can learn. Like you remember the story of the fish cage business, when I was demonstrating the point that somebody should start with what they understand. So these are books that you can get by reaching me directly. And Mercy, I'm sure, will be sharing my number. You can reach me directly. The books cost currently 500 bob. We've been selling them at 700, but we decided that to increase the access, let's do them at 500 bob so that the books can fly off the shelves and help people who may want to learn lessons about how to practically start a business in our context, in the Kenyan context, in the African context. Yes.
Well, we've all heard from the horse's mouth. Anthony Njagi, one of the best authors in the country, has told us how best you can start a business despite the little capital you have. Don't forget to buy the books and get more insights on how you can run a beautiful and a successful business. For more, you can call the number below or even contact him in person through his Facebook handle, Anthony Njagi. Or you can also visit them at Kisii, in Kisii County, at a place called Market Plaza. Please don't also forget to like, share, and subscribe on this YouTube channel. Until next time, adios.